rematches. You see here a mirror also in the Legacy seat. And this is 2 Legacy land specialists up against each other, Jody Keith and Kevin King. The only not mirror match is the middle seat, Dan Jessup versus Todd Stevens. Dan playing Grixis Shadow, one of the top decks here in Modern, and Todd Stevens, a deck which he believes to be meted to be a counter to Grixis Shadow.
Right.
But we'll start with Standard here. Jim Davis wins the die roll and leads off on Village Messenger, the Raging Goblin Werewolf you were talking about.
And given the contents of Tom's main deck, he can't feel great about losing the die roll here.
Some one-win haste on his side as well, though. His is Bomat Courier.
That'll prevent the Werewolf from flipping.
Right, there is that check on the first turn to make sure that Village Messenger doesn't transform.
Yeah, a lot of decks just generally won't have action on turn 1 and sometimes turn 2, so the Village Messenger often transforms.
Now it will transform here, but maybe not in the way that Jim wanted. He had no land and no play there on the second turn.
Yeah, the no land's bad. He's got this shock in his hand, though.
Shock Bomat Courier. Now Jim was on a mulligan to 6, does look like.
He's going to want to hit that second land at some point. It looks like Tom Ross has more lands rolled up and likely some removal spells for Jim's creatures as well.
Yeah, Tom has multiple copies of Magma Spray in hand. See Jim casts Earthshaker Kenra and attacks.
It's a good one to Magma Spray.
Yeah, there's a Kenra and a Village Messenger attacking, and Tom, why not both? He'll shoot a Magma Spray at each of them and go back to his untapped. See, on-crop Crasher at the ready.
Yeah, if Tom curves out on top of that, getting both those creatures out the battlefield puts Tom in a very good position.
He'll attack for 3 and send Jim to 16. Now Jim did hit his second land that last turn. See in his hand, he has another Kenra, an Incendiary Flow, and Chandra Torch of Defiance.
So ways off of casting that Chandra. He can play with these cards. The thing about these decks, though, is that so many of the creatures in these 2 decks have haste. That Incendiary Flow, he's going to want to fire that off straight away. He's already taken 3 damage, though. He's going to take a hit off of any other haste creature being added on the following turn.
Yeah, he will go for the Incendiary Flow on the on-crop Crasher. Sends it into exile. But Tom pulling ahead on these lands, and now we see double Kenra from Tom Ross.
And once your mono-red opponent in the mirror starts double spelling, you're in a lot of trouble. He needs to find answers to all these creatures, especially given that Tom's at 18. That's just too much life to try to cheese him, especially with no board presence.
And Jim's down to 11. The only 2 castables in his hand are his own Earthshaker Kenra and a Falconwrath Gorger. You see, if he does hit lands, he has a curve out available, on-crop Crasher into Chandra. But for now, Jim will cast the Kenra as a blocker.
Tom is light on resources. You know, he's only drawing up to his second card in hand, but any removal spell is great here.
Yeah, he'll abrade away the Kenra and swing, so Jim's at 7. Tom now out of cards, but if you look, he has Ramunap Ruins, 2 deserts, and also if these Kenras hit the graveyard, they do Eternalize for just 6 mana.
Yeah, and that is really one of the strengths of this mono-red aggro deck in Standard. The fact that if you draw these specific cards, flooding's not really an issue. You can start shocking with your lands. Eternalizing the Kenra hits for so much damage.
Yeah, on-crop Crasher is his play. He'll cast it as a blocker. But one thing, all the creatures in these decks seem to just trade with each other. One drops, 2 drops, or 3 drops.
And that is really one of the selling points of Earthshaker Kenra. When that one trades, it just comes back.
And Tom draws Chandra, removes the blocker, and attacks for 4.
That's going to seal this one up.
Yeah.
Tom just has 4 different sources for 2 damage on the following turn. The Chandra, the 2 Kenras, the Ramunap Ruins.
All right, so game 1 will go to Tom Ross. That situation really hitting his land drops. Once he got ahead, it didn't feel like Jim had a catch-up mechanic, a way where he could, you know, every card was just trading 1 for 1, and Jim could only play 1 card per turn. So once he was behind, it didn't feel like he could do anything there.
Yeah, and that's going to be the nature of these mono-red decks. There's just so much going upstairs. It's all about haste creatures, trying to manage the board, getting ahead, and staying ahead.
All right, I do want to look at some of the sideboards. Starting on Jim Davis's side, he has 2 Blazing Volley, 2 Chandra's Defeat, 2 Abrade, 2 carry Zev's Expertise, 2 copies of Akum Firebird. We actually saw that yesterday out of Mono Red. A pair of Glory Bringers, a Seagate Wreckage, a 3rd copy of Chandra, and a single copy of Magma Spray. There's actually, if he wants to go bigger and maybe transform his strategy, there's a lot of tools for Jim Davis.
Yeah, the efficient removal spells here, you know, the Magma Spray, and also is a good argument for Abrea. Those play well enough here. The Chandra's Defeat's really great because it's the 1-mana catch-all for, you know, red creature at any point in the curve. The big find here, the 2 copies of Glory Bringer. The fact that this is a haste body that also can kill something the turn that you cast it, that's so powerful in this matchup when things are all just about haste creatures, killing your opponent's creatures, and managing the board.
Yeah, if you want to just load up on removal spells, a removal spell that's also a threat is particularly nice here, which Glorybringer does. And he does it. Speaking of the removal spells, you mentioned that Chandra's Defeat, Abrade, Magma Spray. He'll have a lot more tools for the second game.
Yeah, that stuff all looks quite good here.
And interestingly, if you look at Tom Ross's sideboard, he does not have as much removal. So we get on the list. He does have 3 copies of Blazing Volley. Jim's deck with some number of 1 toughness creatures. But looking at these other cards, Tom has threats in his sideboard instead of answers.
Right, and that's really the nature of his deck. He's committed to the build to smash. I do like these Ether Sphere Harvesters quite a lot. Both being a 5 toughness creature, the fact that it has some evasion and can gain lifelink, that's going to be really powerful here. Handweaver Garrison dodges some of the removal. You know, you've seen shocks or magma sprays or what have you. This card can be quite good in the red mirror. It also can block a lot of the creatures pretty positively.
I was going to say, my favorite part about Handweaver Garrison here is that it's a 2/3.
Right.
And we watched that whole game full of 2 toughness creatures and how they all would trade, and Garrison actually can be...
Blocks well and attacks better. He's got a Chandra's Defeat of his own. That one's quite good. And I like the carry Zev's Expertise a good amount. There's going to be some turn where you can grab one of Jim's creatures, especially if you get that Glory Bringer.
Yeah, so without them seeing each other's deck lists, you're saying that Tom Ross's carry Zev's Expertise, that one's pretty good. Jim Davis's is less good. Will the players get to know that, though?
You obviously don't know exactly what they're sideboarding, but the options are pretty limited. It's just a mono red mirror, and Tom's deck, the spirit of it, you know, he knows he's playing Built to Smash. He knows that not everybody is. You can also, these guys have played each other plenty of times in the tour. You got to know that Jim is not a Built to Smash guy.
Do you think that Tom Ross is still going to have the Built to Smashes in his deck for these next games?
On the draw, it might be a little bit tough. You probably want to maintain some because of how well it plays with Ether Sphere Harvester.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds great.
But maybe you trim them. On the play, there's a good chance he just wants to leverage them. If Jim's plan involves blocking or casting a removal spell in combat, he'll be able to generate some good value with that card.
Yeah, well, we will see in the second game. And over at StarCityGames.com, we have our weekly sale, but this is our last day of it, so you're going to want to head over to the store. We've been selling 20% off select full art basic lands. So whether it's original Zendikar, Battle for Zendikar, Unhinged, Unglued, or Amonkhet, those are on sale, but that sale ends tomorrow morning. So pick those up today and check out and stop by tomorrow to see next week's weekly sale.
Big fan of Unglued lands. I have the most forest by a good margin, which is a little embarrassing. I should probably pick up some more islands.
Goes good for that Dungrove Elder deck that you like to play. That guy loves forests.
I opened a box of Unglued many years ago because I valued neither my money nor my time. It's kind of a wacky, limited environment, but yeah, mostly it was about opening the cool lands.
Well, the other mirror match finishes the first game. Over in the Lands mirror, it is Jody Keith with Lands winning game 1 over Kevin King.
Yeah, sometimes the Lands mirror can go quick. Lands is a deck that gained a lot of closing power once you gave it the Dark Depths combo with Thespian Stage.
Yeah, I want to say back in the day before the Dark Depths Thespian Stage interaction was printed, this matchup was such a grind. You would, you know, you try to Bazooka Bog the other person's Barbarian Ring and then mill them and hope that they would mill out. It was really a slog.
Yeah.
Well, Tom Ross won the first game. The mono red player here.
One of the mono red players.
One of the mono red players here. I would say the player you associate with mono red.
Right.
See if you can take the second. He'll be on the draw. And we're underway. No one drop for Jim this game. Tom, he'll play one. Bomat Courier. No, not worried about magma sprays on this side. If the 1/1 swings in.
If it dies, it dies, right? You're not going to not make that play because of a magma spray.
And it's carries out Skyship Raider for Jim Davis.
Now, I want to know if Tom attacks into this carry Zev.
Oh, yeah, I hope so.
Put the fear of built to smash in him.
Plays another Bomat Courier and swings them both. No, he will abrade away the carry Zev and just attack for 1.
Okay, that's acceptable.
Makes attacks with 2 Bomat Couriers and doesn't have the built to smash.
Jim has a good mix of 1-mana options here. It's like a couple Gorgers and a Shock. That'll do a good job of turning this board around.
And that's what he'll do. Plays 2 copies of Falconwrath Gorger, leaving up single red. Does look like Tom saw built to smash in his hand that turn. So there's a bit of a timing check. Built to smash for 1 red gives a creature +3/+3. If it's an artifact, it gains trample, but can only target an attacking creature. So there's this window where if he wants to use shock on it, he should do it before Tom declares attackers.
And Tom has 4 cards in hand. Sometimes you want to kind of leverage exactly how good you think the cards under the Bomat Courier are.
Right.
Or how good your hand is. He currently just 2 cards under the first Bomat Courier. So trading 4 for 3, generally not a very inviting option.
Yeah, and actually he does have that built to smash, but you see Tom respecting the single red up from Jim and not attacking.
Yeah, getting shocked there would be far from ideal.
Right, and in these post-pro games, I was going to say you'd players build up to things like Chandra, but here's a sideboarded Blazing Volley from Jim Davis.
Speaking of far from ideal.
Yeah, that's nice. For 1 red, deals 1 damage to each creature that his opponents control. That hits both of Tom's creatures. And Jim can swing for 4 with these Falconwrath Gorgers. That means that Tom's plan of turn 4 Chandra here isn't actually a safe play on the board.
Right. He has the plus loyalty. Doesn't look like he has any options for spells to cast there. So likely just converting that into a shock.
Yeah, the other option is if you plus it, then it will go to 1, and you have to plus it again the next turn. He may just -3 it.
Yeah, he has 2 Chandras. You know, maybe you just have to kill something.
And that's the play Tom will make. Forced into that line because of Blazing Volley, Tom was hoping to use his 1/1s to block for Chandra.
And Jim does have a Glorybringer waiting in the wings. 1 more land drop, and that one is going to be loose.
Here's the Hanvir Garrison. And you're right, Glorybringer as a follow-up. This is a tough spot for Tom. Can use his Chandra, the second one, to shoot down the Garrison, which he probably has to, but then he'll lose his second Planeswalker.
Right. Just a 4-mana Flame Slash.
And that'll be the play. And here's Falconwrath Gorger. It's going to try to block for Chandra.
And Jim still has that shock.
Yeah, that's not...
Yeah, waited on that one with the Couriers because he was able to clean them both up.
I'm wondering if he'll end step it. Okay, he does. There was an argument for Jim to not cast the shock and then just see if he drew the untapped 5th land.
Well, exerting Glorybringer when he could just attack with it is not ideal. Yeah, obviously, like using the shock when you can kill the creature otherwise, maybe it's a waste of a shock. But there's going to be something else that he wants to kill.
Right, like, so he didn't hit the land. You know, he could have shocked main phase here and then done the same play.
Right.
Another result in our modern match. It's a sweep for the team on the right here for Team Dapper and the Bayou Boys. Todd Stevens takes game 1 over Dan Jessup.
Team doing pretty well here.
Or it's Dapper Todd and the Bayou Boys, because Team Dapper is when he plays with DeCandio and Tannen Grace.
Yeah, the other players would be wearing fancy dress.
Brennan DeCandio, best of luck to him, not at the event today. He is en route to Kyoto, Japan to play in the Pro Tour next weekend. And Earthshaker Kenros added that turn. And now we feel like we're watching game 1 in reverse. It's Tom's turn to have to block to stabilize. And what I saw from game 1 is That does not work well in this matchup.
And if you look at the cards in the player's hands, Jim just has his sideboard cards that allow him to go over the top. He's waiting on that Glorybringer. Tom has Karizev's Expertise. That's only going to be able to allow him to chip in for a small amount of damage. Once you're behind, you can't convert that stuff.
And this was one of my worries when you were talking about the card Built to Smash in the post-sideboarded games. Tom's had a Built to Smash in his hand the entire game, but this card, okay, so he has, a correction there. I believe we have Karizev's Expertise. That's what you mentioned?
Yes.
Okay, so can steal that Glorybringer. Okay, so the card he picks up there is, we believe is Hazoret the Fervent.
He's got a Sun-Scorched Desert. He's trying to see if you can get in some chip shots here. He's facing down lethal on the table, which is the problem he has to manage
well, this
here.
is just the thing. All these cards, even after sideboard, just don't block particularly well.
Right.
Yeah, here's Hazoret. Now, he's only got one card in hand, so as a 5/4, sure, Hazoret could block. You see he'll just attack with the card, though.
So that puts Jim to 11. He'll have to be using the Kenra to block, and with that dead, that's going to end the game.
Yep, shoots down the Kenra, and we'll go to a third game. And yeah, those sideboard cards from Jim, I mean, it's the removal spells, where the turning point of that game felt was the Blazing Volley.
Yeah, that was huge for Jim.
Yeah, Tom was hoping to use Couriers to block for his Chandras and then use Chandras to gain advantage. But once the Couriers were swept away, you saw both Chandra Torch of Defiances ended up just being Flame Slash, a 4-mana kill spell.
Right. And you see Tom reaching back into his sideboard here. He saw that Jim has a lot of this low to the ground removal. Might be reconfiguring. Could also just be trying to get more aggressive on the play. He does have some options here. This will be the first game that Tom is on the play.
Yeah, Jim actually was on the play for both of our first 2 games. You see some re-sideboarding from Tom. Not surprised, especially in this matchup with so many haste creatures, to see a switch of strategy on play versus draw.
And it could also just be that once you see the Blazing Volley, you're going to hedge around that one.
Yeah, I mean, you'd want to probably cut some of a Bomat Courier.
Yeah, you don't want to commit too many 1-toughness creatures into that one.
Yeah, if you look at Tom's list, he has 12 1-toughness creatures in the main. It's the set of Gorgers, Kenras, and Bomat Couriers. I mean, maybe Tom wants some of his Blazing Volleys if they already aren't there. Tim's deck even softer to it. He has the same ones, and then you add Village Messenger to the mix.
We didn't see any messengers in the sideboard game. That might have been what was cut for some of those removal spells.
Do you think that's the first 1-drop that goes when you start boarding out these X1s?
It has the kind of most upside as an aggressive creature. Bomat Courier can technically draw cards. Some people jokingly call that Tidings, Raging Tidings.
I don't know. It's very rare that we see it draw cards, but it can. You're right. You're right.
The Falconrag Gorger is already also pretty poor. I guess like the Bomat Courier is the one with the highest upside, and the other ones are generally expendable.
I could see an argument on play versus draw with Village Messenger too.
Sure.
On the draw, I don't really like it.
Yeah, the haste, you technically are making up some value, but it's just a 1/1. Your opponent will more likely be able to cast spells.
Well, they'll play a third deciding game. Now, of Star City Games, we have StarCityGames.com's Game Night. It's Game Night somewhere. These are exclusive pins and tokens produced by Star City Games, given away as prizes for playing in local tournaments near you. So July we'll be giving away the Goose of St. Traft. You can pick this up by playing in a game night. This Angel and pin here. See a 4/4 flyer. Angel can be used for the card Geist of St. Traft, part of our parody series. Next month, the promotion will be the Puggernaut. This is the 6/6 artifact creature beast. And if you get signed up now, we can get you signed up in time for the September pin and token, which is going to be the Smell Snare. No, the Smell Snare is not the skunk. Of course, it's the wizard dog that's trapping the skunk. You can find a location near you and get your store signed up at starcitygames.com/game night.
The pin's the skunk, though, because it has a good color scheme. Got to have a good skunk aesthetic.
Well, for Jim Davis, he was our players champion, the captain of Team Metagame Gurus, the 33-year-old from Long Island, New York. 11 open top 8s with 2 wins and 3 invitational top 8s as well. He's been the mainstay on the team. The Team Metagame Gurus having a roster shakeup this year. But Jim has remained constant. Also, streams quite a bit.
The fearless leader. Also really into music. Does backup vocals for his band Teach Me Human. She features on his stream periodically. Does Magic full-time, something that I'm sure a lot of viewers wish they could do.
You know, and you have to give credit to Jim for the full-time Magic player. He's really made that work. You see Metagame Gurus doing a lot of local interaction. They showed up here in Duluth, Georgia the day before at a gunslinging Beat a Gurus event locally with the community. Andrew and Dan Jessup on Gurus this year, though they switched. Some of the roster switches changed. Ben Friedman and Frank Scarron now part of Metagame Gurus.
Very strong pickups for the team.
Yeah, absolutely. These are players with some good Pro Tour experience.
Some GP wins. Frank Scarron, largely known as a limited specialist, but we've been seeing him do very well in Constructed as of late.
Yeah, he really broke on the scene with Grand Prix Charlotte, winning that event in Limited back in Gatecrash, I believe it was. Then took a break from the game for about a year, and now is back, and we already are seeing him produce results. And I do want to mention, this is a much better tournament also for the Gurus. We did see our last team at Metagame Gurus really have a similar day one, where they were atop of the standings, and then really had a 2-4 day two to miss the top 8.
They have some ground to make up if they want to win this match.
Yeah, and the ground they have to make just keeps getting longer. We have another result, and this is our first match completed. It is the Landsmere in the Battle of the Land Specialist. It is Jody Keith who is victorious at 2-0. He wins the match.
I would have guessed that the Landsmere would have taken longer than the Mono Red Mirror. I would have been wrong.
Well, I mean, we mentioned that. I sometimes wonder if Lands just has this reputation that's undeserved now. So you think of Lands as, it's going to take forever, which if we were playing 10 years ago, yes. Yes, it does. But the deck really has some speed to it now.
Yes.
Game number 3, Tom Ross on the play. No 1-mana play here. Looks like he does have Soulscar Mage that he's picked up. He'll cast that on turn 2 and pass.
Some bad news for Tom Ross. 2 land drops so far, both Ramunap Ruins. That one makes him take some damage for red mana.
Right, now this is normally a free card to run in mono red because they don't need that many red mana sources, they just need lands. So once you have 1 mountain, sure, you tap them for colorless most every turn, just like you would a Shivan Reef. But the issues with Shivan Reefs is that when all of your lands do that, then the damage just piles up.
Compounded by the fact that we are in the red aggressive mirror, of course.
Yeah, Earthshaker Kenra attacks and adds 2 damage. No blocks by Soulscar Mage. Tom is looking for a 3rd land here, and I believe he missed.
He picked up Aethersphere Harvester, which is good if he finds that land.
Just has to say go. You're right, the Harvester's neat because even if Tom falls behind here, and it looks like he's going to, this is one of the few cards that I think could help him catch back up.
Right. The fact that it has the lifelink, the fact that it represents a good blocker, and then gets to attack on the next turn if he needs that life.
Yet there's so few good blockers in this matchup, but Harvester's one of them.
Yeah.
Now, he'll still need it soon. There's always a chance that Jim does something like plays his Hanvir Garrison here. And if he does, Tom better have a blocker.
Or a removal spell. And the really nice thing to like about the Harvester is that you can't use anything like Earthshaker Kenra or On-Crop Crasher to stop it from blocking. You just crew it once your opponent has declared attackers. Of course, Tom has to find another land and be able to cast it.
And I like the sequencing here from Jim. Plays a land and then attacks. He'd like this trade to happen. Tom won't give it to him. And now we'll see how he wants to follow up. There is a Garrison in Jim's hand. He'll just pass, though.
Yeah, do not want to play that Garrison into a potential Abrade.
And I like this from Jim. He's capitalizing on the fact that Tom is missing land drops. Saying, well, I don't really want you to Abrade here, as you mentioned, because that would allow Tom to convert his mana. By passing, Tom, as you saw, just drew a card, did nothing with his lands.
Yeah, and there's also not any strong incentive for Jim to turn up the heat, because as long as both players are casting spells, Tom's just taking 1 or 2 damage off of every exchange.
Right, he's taking more off each exchange, and also if you look at Jim, Jim has the 4th land in his hand. He has maybe even the 5th land in a Glorybringer. So Jim says, yeah, if we just hang out. I mean, Tom missed the 3rd land drop. Jim says, hey, show me you can draw a land on this turn. If we just trade land drops, I'm going to make Glorybringers. You can't beat that.
Right.
Tom will Blazing Volley away the Kenra and attack with Prowess for 2, but he did miss the land again, and this is really rewarding Jim's play.
Something I really like about Jim's sideboard plan here is you see he has brought in that Seagate wreckage. He just says,
that's so good. Yeah.
I am the control here. The only thing that he didn't do to fully cement that is that when he had the choice, he took the play. If he was really bold, he'd have taken the draw.
Actually, the mono red, or the red deck wins mirror is one of the matchups, especially in Standard, where we will see players choose the draw.
Right.
I don't know if their decks, these decks, they can slow down their decks. I'm not sure they can slow it down enough to start taking the draw.
Given that so many of the creatures actually prevent blocking, it does make sense.
Well, the Garrison will be cast here by Jim, but he's got some bad news from his teammate Dan Jessup, and that's that this game's not going to finish. Todd Stevens, 2-0, wins the Modern match. So with that, it's going to be Dapper Todd and the Bayou Boys staying undefeated. They pick up 2 match wins, and they will win the round.